been a while. It's been a minute. So I'm going to, as a refresher, because I'm going to try to speed round a bunch of these reviews. This one, I'm going to do X, Pearl, and Maxxine so that you guys can know my standing on each of these films. I rewatched X and Pearl right before I rewatched Maxxine, I watched Maxxine. And, what I thought about each of them. So I thought, might as well give you a triple review on my day back. And I'll try to get as much reviews as possible in the order of movies that I've watched them, so the order that they've come out. So as you know, Maxxine's probably out. It's not on streaming, then probably like rental, almost out of theaters, right? X and Pearl were both on streaming, or should be on streaming by now. Anyway, let's start. And I put the rating system here so that you guys can remember what my rating system is. Again, I try to do it within the trailer time, so under 5 minutes for each one. For the Maxxine one, I was gonna do spoilers. You know what? I'll do spoilers at the end for all three, so that I can talk about freely about all the stuff. And those that don't want spoilers don't have spoilers. All right? Okay. Let's go. So story, plot, and premise. For this one, it's a couple of teenagers. They decide to make an adult film. They rent out this farm place, or they it's being rented out or whatever, like a farm cabin spot where they shoot the stuff. And it's both funny, also horrific. The stuff that happens to them, obviously. It does remind me of this movie Don't Breathe, which I might bring up again at some point this week. But basically, this older couple is the one renting them the farm, and the older couple is very religious and is very, couth, about stuff like that. But then stuff ensues. Let's just put it that way. So story, plot, and premise, I really like. It's really original, at least for the first one for X. And the sound design and score, I also enjoyed. The cinematography, I also enjoyed. The acting in the cast, I also enjoyed. This is Kid Cudi is in this. A bunch of other famous actresses and actors, but this is one of Jenna Ortega's first times that I ever saw her in a movie, was this movie, and I thought she was a great and up-and-coming actress, and look at what it turned out to be. And then directing, also really good. So to me, I will ding it a little bit, because the story, again, the plot and the premise, whatever, is very predictable. It's, where it's going, sort of, kinda. And, like, the creepy factor of the stuff that's happening is what makes the story, takes it over the top. But, kinda, the premise or the story has been done before a little bit. Just, this is a little bit more of an interesting way. Anyway, I'm gonna ding it a little bit for story, so I'm gonna give it half points. I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. 4.5 out of 5 for X. Again, check it out if you can, wherever it's streaming. It is, in my opinion, the better of the trilogy. It still has the shock value. It still has the surprise. It still has the fun. It doesn't really get bogged down in its story too much. It doesn't get too long-winded or boring. It's very fast-paced. I think it's like an hour and a half, hour 40 minutes. Very quick movie. Stuff happens really rapidly after the initial introduction of the characters. So, that's my thoughts on that. Next movie. Okay, so Pearl, story, plot, and premise. It's a continuation, in a way, of, it's a prequel to the X. So the couple that we meet, the older couple that we meet, this is their story of them younger, sort of, right? Especially more the girl Pearl, who was Pearl in X, is Pearl in this. But anyway, they're both played by Mia Goth. Well, in X, it was played by an older lady, but in this one, it's Mia Goth playing Pearl, a younger Pearl. And in the X movie, she says, "You remind me a lot of my younger self," so that's why the resemblance is there. Anyway, I really enjoyed Pearl. I thought it was going to be more of a return to what happened with X. It is, in a way, sort of, but it's mostly about Pearl and her ambitions and her drive and her goals, which also Maxxine is about, but we'll get there. Anyway, story, plot, and premise, to me, I feel like they really dropped the ball when it came to what I was expecting for a sequel for X, or what I was expecting for the origin story of this character Pearl or whatever. Again, towards the later half of the movie, it is in full swing and all that stuff, but like throughout the movie, you're just waiting for it to get there, and it takes a while to get there, and again, the acting's really good, so you know what, let me get to the acting. So story, plot, and premise, I am going to ding it. I didn't really like the story for Pearl that much, so I'll still give it a half point because it's still a continuation of X. It's a prequel. They found a way to do it, and it's still technically interesting, innovative, new, and stuff like that. So I'll give it a half a point. Sound design and score, they didn't really do much different from X, in my opinion. So I'll give it a half point. Cinematography, I actually enjoyed it. Even the scenes of like, you know, that were mostly Pearl fantasizing about what her life is going to be like, and other things that they showed, and her with the scarecrow. Anyway, I really like cinematography, so I'll leave it a full point. Acting, again, Mia Goth, to me, very well acted. It's majority her, the most of the movie. So if you don't like her, you're really not going to like this movie. But her acting is top notch, really one of the best. And then there are other cast members, obviously the mom and the father. Well, mostly the mom and her interact a lot, and that is very well done. But yeah, I like the cast. I like the acting. And the directing, it was, again, helmed very well, but I feel like, again, I would have chosen to do it I would have gone a different direction. So, or done with this a different version of something that I did with X. So I would say I'm going to give it a half a point for directing. So half for story, half for sound design, that's 1. Half for directing, that's 1.5. Then full for cinematography and acting, so 3, 4. Whoa, hold on. $1.5, 2.5, 3.5. So I'm going to give Pearl a 3.5 out of 5. Let me know what you guys think down below. The trailer's still going on. It's one of those long-winded trailers. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. And if you guys agree with me. And that's Pearl. We're moving on to Maxxine. All right, I actually finished that one before the trailer. That's great. Maxxine. Oh boy, it's only a minute long. I have a lot to say about Maxxine. So it might loop. All right, Maxxine. I don't know what do I talk about Maxxine? Story, plot, and premise, I feel, is better than Pearl. Like, it's a bit more modern, not too modern, but more modern than where Pearl is. And this is literally just after X, Mia Goth's character continuing the character from X, who was Maxxine, and her storyline and what happened after the farm, right? And so I feel like it's a lot better paced than Pearl, as in stuff happens in it that's a lot more interesting right off the bat. There's this thing with Kevin Bacon's character and how she's trying to get that whole thing going, and then there's people being murdered, and she's trying to figure out, whatever, and then there's whole cult stuff. So there's a lot of storylines, a lot of different plots. That's my issue with it, actually, is that it didn't focus narrowly on a plot point. Damn, I wasted all of it on the first one. Anyway, it wasted a lot of time on different plot points instead of a main through line, and that, I feel like, kind of diluted the story a little bit. But I still feel like it's a bit better than Pearl. So I'll give it a half point for the story. Sound design and score, I actually really enjoyed the sound design and score of this one, because they had the 80s theme, the 80s, all throughout, and I really enjoyed it. Cinematography as well, I really enjoy the 80s, so hitting me where I like it. Acting and cast, again, Mia Goth, very well acted. Giancarlo Esposito has some great one-liners and some great, and just some great dialogue in this. Kevin Bacon also is pretty funny in it. Then pretty much all the other characters are kind of hokey, kind of, it is kind of hokey or whatever. But I mean, all of them are kind of like that. But I enjoyed, most of the cast. But again, Mia Goth is the one running the show here. And then directing, again, I would have gone a different direction, and not that different, though, just basically a more focused direction. So I'm going to give it a half point for directing. So half for story, half for directing, that's 1. And then I'll give it 2, 3, 4, because 1 point for the other ones. So I'll give it a 4 out of 5. So Maxxine, 4 out of 5. So that's how I feel. The first one, 4.5 out of 5. I believe that's what I said. Pearl, the second one, 3.5 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. I don't remember. And then Maxxine, a 4 out of 5. That's how I feel. I feel like it's around that. That is how I feel about the movies. Like if I were to rewatch them, I would probably rewatch X, definitely. And then maybe Maxxine. Pearl, I might not rewatch or leave for last. But yeah, anyway, let me get into some spoilers a little bit. So if you don't want to get stuff spoiled for you, you can skip this part. I'm pretty much just going to say what I said in the review, which is the storyline of her father being the cult leader and stuff, which they did allude to at the end of X. And so when the stuff happened with Pearl, and like when we went back to Pearl, like basically the prequel with Pearl, I don't know, I just felt like we were kind of not, like we were not expecting that storyline to go through, but it's fine that it did. I'm just saying if they focused narrowly on that, then I would have been okay with it. But then the fact that they had the detective trying to, be like, hey, I know what you did, or trying to blackmail her or whatever, and the detective also being part of the father's cult somehow, that through line wasn't that well done, executed. What else? The fact that she got away from a cult so easily. But I mean, she's badass, What else? The serial killer that I think turned out to be her dad. I don't know. The serial killer was killing a bunch of people, I guess trying to frame her, but it was her dad, I guess. I don't know. Again, that through line is just, I don't even remember. Sheesh. It's just a lot of stuff that bogged down the story that I felt didn't need to. Also, they killed, like they do have to kill the black guy in every 80s movie because that's what the 80s is, but they killed him so brutally compared to all the other murders that they just showed, and I'm just like, damn, like that's messed up. In my opinion, I didn't really like that. But yeah, just again, the storyline was muddled because of that, and so I felt X was very much well executed because there's not a lot of plot, there's not a lot of stuff to bog it down. You just get to the nitty gritty. This is what's happening. This is why it's happening, and this is the creepiness and the horror factor, and I really enjoyed that. Then I guess with Pearl, it was more like, following the life of Pearl and her. Every time she went back to the dude at the movie theater and all that stuff, I was like, oh my God, it takes a whole hour to get to the dude. Like we see her biking there and then biking back and biking there and biking back. And it's like, can we get the story going? And then also it's kind of bogged down by the parents and their whole scenario of how they live their life or whatever, but it's just explaining her past. But I just don't know how she went from that to the person that she became. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that bridge didn't, like the murderous intent. Yes, we get the murderous intent in her and where that came from and why she did all the stuff that she did. But the fact that, they didn't even get the husband coming back and her, explaining everything or rekindling stuff and finding out that he's also a murderer or whatever. I don't know. It could have explored a lot of stuff that it didn't. And then it didn't really connect the through line of this prequel, so this Pearl becoming the Pearl that we saw in X. So that's why I was like, meh. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down below about these movies, and I'll see you guys in the next review. This has been Another Useless Skill.